Hi guys, wanted to do a quick video to just show you the Beta 109, the main sort of changes that have been put in place. So a couple of quick things. I haven't actually done this on the video yet, but I thought I'll just run through it quickly. Is that changing from the old legacy approach to the new sort of indicator style way of doing things. I'm going to run through a quick example so everyone knows what how to go about doing that. So what I've done, I've got a demo spec set up at the moment, which is just a copy of the previous light spec. Today I'm using one of the specs of the resource manager. It's done by Sylvester, and yeah, I really quite like it, and gives a bit of variation to the demo to use something a bit different. So yeah, if you want to use the spec, you can download it. Just go onto the site, go to resource manager, look for Sylvester Light, and you can download it there, and then add it to your library. Yeah, so what I've done is I've loaded the spec up. I've did a copy of it, demo spec, and what I've got on here is the old version using the legacy approach, and then the new version. So with the old approach, essentially, as most of you know, is that the functionality was hard coded into the columns. And as I got to the point of starting to add a lot of new features and functionality with a request that came in from the beta, I found it wasn't going to be ideal, or it wasn't going to have longevity, that approach, because essentially what would happen was that as we add more types of features, you know, what would happen is, for instance, someone would want to see like a high-low marker on, say, for instance, a price ladder, and then someone would want to see it on a bid ladder, or something like that. So the trouble is that having the functionality coded into the columns means that every time I add a new feature, I have to code it into all the columns, and then the columns themselves become quite a handful. If I just show you, for instance, on the old spec, so if we look at the price ladder, and it's got the old price ladder column type and the type properties here. So over here we've got the tick functionality actually coded into the column, but the tick functionality really shouldn't be part of the price ladder, because the tick functionality centers around a market tick, either ticking up, ticking down, or ticking at the same price, and then wanting to format the display around that particular function. And it's not really related to the price ladder in any way. So the trouble with this is now that this tick functionality, if you want it on all columns, you have to start spreading these properties across them and so on. So that's one of the justifications for moving this type of functionality off of the columns and turning the columns themselves into um, almost going just back one level, and they're going to become much more generic. This particular column type, at the moment, we're changing them to not assigned, but it's going to become just a ladder column. And the ladder column will be based on this particular functionality where you scroll up, scroll down, it's got the ladder, and you'll be able to add all these indicators to a ladder column. And I say that because going forward in the future, we're going to have some other different types of columns, scroller columns, and so on. So, yeah, the process for changing, if we go now to this price using it's this middle form here, it's got this demo spec applied. So there's the price column. It's got the column type of price letter set. So what we'll do is you're going to unassign that. At present, the software is coded to handle the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things, and that's for this sort of changeover period until we move into the completely new approach of using the indicators. At which point I'll remove these old column types when everyone's old specs are upgraded. So we've set that to being not assigned. You see, obviously now the price disappears, and now you want to add an indicator. You want to specify, you want to use the price ladder indicator type, and I'm just going to give that a meaningful name so we can actually see what it is when we're browsing the tree. So price ladder, it's going to drop in pane sequence. It will be, because there's already an indicator on here, it will go to the next pane sequence. So it will pane to the higher the pane sequence, the nearer, the most topmost part of the display that indicator is going to be on. So at present, it defaults in with a 9G dark default setting. So if we just change that to black, and then we change its font size to 8. There we go. So I think that's 8, and might be 8.5 actually. 8. Right. So yeah, and that's it. So now, I mean, it looks identical. It functions in the same manner. The only difference is that it's essentially being added as an indicator to the column, and the reason, or the power in this, there's a whole bunch of things actually. So let me show you here, for example. So we've just added the price ladder indicator, right? So what we can do now, another large addition with the 109 beta is that all of the profile functionality has been taken off of the ladder as well, and that's been put into indicator. So one of the requests was from someone, can I have a volume ladder on my price ladder? And previously we couldn't do that because I hadn't coded, the profile functionality on the price ladder. But now with this approach, all we need to do is we've on our price column we've got a price ladder, and we're going to add another indicator, and this time we're going to choose the volume profile and just call it volume profile. You can give these more meaningful names so that you can see them better in your own tree. Paint sequence as defaults to the topmost. And now with the profiles, there's some extended functionality. When I turned these into indicators, I added some extra things, and in this case, you can now actually. Previously, you couldn't hide the text, which you can now do. So in this case, we've actually dumped a profile on top of the price ladder, and you know, by default, if you've got another indicator on there, it's going to clash slightly until you clean it up, and you need to sort of work that yourself. So we can't obviously have text from the volume profile and the price ladder running at the same time because you get this mess here. So I'll take that off. So we've got a profile on the price ladder, and then the other problem now is that we want this profile to be sitting behind the price ladder as opposed to on top of it. So what you want to do is you come back out to your paint sequence and you shift this paint sequence, you push it lower so that it actually goes to the back, and it moves before the price ladder paint sequence, which is 2. So we've moved it to 1. So you see there. Now in the old approach you couldn't do that because the hard-coded price ladder column wasn't able to fit into this paint sequencing method. So it was basically at the bottom, and that was all that you could do, and you could put stuff on top. So yeah, that's a big advantage now of having everything set as indicators. It's far more flexible, and you don't have to stop there. You can add whatever you want onto this column. I mean, so we've got a profile, we've got a ladder. Now let's add. You see this little functionality over here before that was part of the profile, the volume profile column. But this over here now I've set it as an indicator. It's called the ticker, and it's tick colors is the indicator that allows you to add that. So let's add a tick colors to this column as well. So we've added it there. Just set that font to be more. So it's 8, size 8. That's for ticking up. We'll set a size 8 here, and set a size. That's for up, down, and sideways. So, and then on top of that, you define. So yeah, on top of that, you on the ticker, you can basically define what you want to see inside of the ticker. It can accumulate a price. It can just show you a per tick, or you can even set it to the volume profile, in which case each time that it ticks, it's going to show you the actual the volume profile total, like in the ticker. And it's quite, it's useful now to have this as a separate thing, because as you can see there now, what we've got is on this one column, we've got a price ladder, and we've got a full-on volume profile sitting on top of it, and then we've got a ticker sitting, on top of that. So, and you can keep going. So essentially, using this approach now, the columns are hugely flexible in terms of what you can do there. Of course, in a proper setup, I don't think that you're going to use this particular approach. It's a bit messy, but I think it gives a pretty good illustration of the flexibility of that. So there are some other things that some other added benefits. For example, one thing that you can do now with this approach is, for instance, you've got a price ladder added to this middle column here, and one of the properties of the price ladder is that it actually determines the auto censor of the book. So when you go onto your price ladder and you choose at the moment, well, the default is usually 30 minutes, and then it auto censors. So there was a request quite some time ago on the beta from someone to say that if I want to have 2 ways of auto censoring at the same time, how do I do that? And I couldn't offer that because of the fact that functionality was coded onto the price ladder column. So what you can do now is if you want to, for instance, have a time-based autocenter as well as a range-based autocenter, you can actually add the price indicator twice onto the column, and then what you do is the second time you just remove. So we've got it added once already, and we've got it added with a 30 minutes time-based recenter. And then what you want to do is you want to add an indicator, a second one. Um, you can call it what you want. I'm going to choose a price letter there. Now you see it's now painting another price letter on top, which of course we don't want. So we can remove that, hide that, and that's not going to impact the performance because when you switch it off, essentially it won't process any of that. It will only process the functionality in relation to this. So what you can do now is you can set that to say ticks, and you set that to 15 with the auto center. So what you now have is a book that has two potential ways of auto centering. If this book now moves 15 ticks in either direction, it's going to auto center, or if it 30 minutes elapses and it hasn't yet moved a 15 tick range, it will also auto center. Um, and I mean this is one application, but it's just to illustrate that you can add the same indicator multiple times and then use different options to apply more and more different types of functionality to the book. So that's another nice feature of that. Yeah, and I think that's everything that I wanted to cover in this video. It's getting on a bit, so I'm going to finish up. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks a lot for watching.